People who saved themselves for marriage and eventually got divorced. What was your approach towards sex after the divorce? In our conservative Lebanese society, after the first divorce, you get a free pass actually. Some people would talk about you, but a lot of conservative people would just tell them, she's divorced. She can do what she wants. This is probably gonna weird people out that I know this. But my monsieur, I know she could be lying, but her and I are painfully open with one another. She was raised at a private Catholic school growing up and claims she never had sex before marrying my dad in their late 30s. And I'm very inclined to believe her. They adopted us, me and my twin sister, when she was 43 and presumably couldn't have kids. My dad cheated on my mom with his current and third wife when I was 2.5, and my mom hasn't even been on a date since. She's very content with being single. She's 70 and has been single for 25 years. She said she got coffee with a guy when we were 4 but thought he was weird. She wouldn't qualify it as a date. I think my mom would go out with someone, but she doesn't care enough to look. She's not on dating apps. If she met some dude at the garden store and he just asked her out, she would probably say yes. It just doesn't happen. By and large, I'm pretty sure my mom just wants to hang out with my aunt, her sister and best friend, and garden. Edit. A lot of folks saying she might be or probably is asexual and doesn't know, or that she's a lesbian. You're speculating with the information I gave you, but highly doubt either of those. Maybe she's asexual but definitely not a closeted lesbian. I'm pansexual, bisexual, and have brought men home. My sister is a lesbian, although she dated boys in high school and early college before coming out, and has said she wouldn't never date a guy again, but she's exclusively interested in women for the foreseeable future. She probably would have come out to us. She has been very pro-LGBTQA since we were kids, always telling us she wouldn't care if we were gay, and when we both came out she definitely didn't care and was nothing but supportive. The church she attends has had 2 long-term pastors, a lesbian woman, and a gay man. My church helped organize the first Pride Parade in my town in the 90s. My family, including my grandma, who would be 109 if she was still alive, is pretty actively pro-LGBTQA. My grandma was alive I came out and she didn't bat an eyelash when I did. She supported me. I'm aware people see Catholic background and assume she must be conservative, but she's pretty radical leftist for her age, so I really don't think it's some repressed sexuality bullshit. Just figured I'd put the edit in because I keep getting comments saying the same things about my monsieur. This doesn't apply to me, but I do have a friend who is in this boat. His approach has been to swear off relationships and be celibate for the rest of his life. Mom didn't have sex for 8 years after getting divorced. She's a devoted Christian for sure. Unfortunately, she got drunk and ruined her 8-year streak. Got it on with my boyfriend's dad. Sigh. My scenario was a bit unique in that my ex-husband and I never did the deed in our marriage. After the divorce, I really couldn't wait to lose my V card. I had to suppress my sexuality for so long that my mindset was just to let loose and have some fun. But then I met a really lovely man and we hit it off really well. We're so compatible in many ways, especially in the bedroom, and I have no desire to know what sex would be like with someone else. Would I tell others to wait for marriage? Probably not. But doing it with someone you are deeply in love with is one of the most amazing things in the world, and it's worth waiting for that person to come into your life. This was my wife. We've been divorced for 3 years and I'm pretty sure she hasn't had sex since, and won't until she gets married again. So she's apparently been true to her principles. I saved myself for marriage and thought my fiancé was super sweet and supportive for waiting with me even though he didn't want to. Turns out he was so okay with it because he was doing other chicks behind my back. And he didn't stop doing other chicks when we got married either. Once we got divorced, I pretty much just didn't care anymore. I'm still not capable of having sex with someone I don't believe I'm in love with. But I don't care about virginity, or body count, or anything like that anymore. I've had 5 long-term boyfriends. So I've slept with 5 people total. I don't ever feel bad about it or regret sleeping with a monsieur, and I don't feel like having one night stands or casual sex is a bad thing by any means either. I just personally don't want to have sex with someone unless I believe I'm in love with a monsieur. Updates for those who have asked. 1. I don't think I've actually been in love 5 times. But I thought I was in love 5 times. If that makes sense. 2. I am still with my most recent boyfriend, who I've been with for several years now, and we were getting married once things get a little closer to normal in the world. So stop asking for my number. Got married in my mid-20s, not realizing that asexuality was even a thing, let alone that I could possibly apply to a good Christian boy who had saved himself. Purity culture in some Christian circles can be a really rough time. We were married for about a year and a half, and I only ever came once from sex or sexual interaction with her. It was really rough for both of us. The hits to her self-esteem, the belief that I was broken in some way. Over time we just stopped really trying. A whole lot of other factors played into the split, but that was definitely one of them. I spent a couple of years after avoiding all possible romantic entanglements, then ventured out a little and found some open-minded people who I briefly dated here there. It was nice to be close to someone again, and I have found that I really like making other people have a good time. There is something immensely satisfying to me to be the cause of someone else's satisfaction. But it can be a little hard for a partner since I am so devoid of sexual reaction. It takes a fair bit of reassurance and good communication to keep that stuff good and healthy. And so they don't feel like they're using me or that I find them repulsive or whatever. Still a work in progress, I guess. I knew a girl that was very hands-off prior to marriage. I never really thought too much about it until I went to her wedding, and before they kissed, the pastor made the announcement that this will be their first kiss, and I was blown away that they have never kissed before. But after their "you may now kiss the bride" kiss, it was obviously their first kiss. The rest of the wedding and reception went well enough, and I heard nothing from them for a few months until someone told me they are getting a divorce. Less than 6 months later. I have a few theories on why. I think the bride is asexual and either never realized it or did not reveal that prior to getting married. She got a bunch of tattoos after the divorce. Full chest ink, sleeves. But I never heard of her dating after. But we're not close. One of my lifelong friends comes from an extremely Christian family. All 3 kids were taught how bad sex before marriage is. 2 of the 3 ended up with children out of wedlock. My close friend of these siblings saved herself but ended up rushing into marriage with very little self-awareness and found herself in a completely sexually and otherwise incompatible marriage. All 3 are divorced at least once now. One has more baby mamas than I can keep track of. After my friend's divorce, she abandoned the no sex before marriage business. She didn't have any wild escapades but developed strong sexual and otherwise chemistry with her now husband. Her parents still tried to shame the monsieur. It was a clusterfuck to watch over the years. Good question. I'm an ex-Mormon and was a virgin when I got married at 21. Was married for over 6 years. Had a good, active sex life, and when I got divorced 2 years back, it was a strange new world. I was excited to have sex with new people, but I quickly found after a handful of hookups that it wasn't always that great. There were some exceptions obviously, but I often find that people who haven't been in long-term relationships are pretty lousy in bed. Having a bunch of one-night stands doesn't make you better at fucking emo. Getting to know someone's body and experimenting does. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't have saved myself for marriage. The best sex I've had has been after my divorce. I have a general rule now that I won't have sex on the first date. I like having more of an emotional connection with the other person. It's more enjoyable that way for me. I, now 38, waited until I was 20. I gave myself to her because I was sure I wanted to wake up next to her for the rest of my life. I felt like we balanced each other for fun and work. We met while I was in college and we worked at a pizza place. She gave me a positive pregnancy test for Christmas and I was happy as hell. After getting married, she seemed to be focused on money and comparing our lives to others. It ended soon after. I got my bachelor's and continued to make good money. But the grass was always greener elsewhere to her. Everyone told me after the divorce I just needed to get laid to get over her. Sex to me was and is still special. I have only experienced it between myself and 3 others. I feel that it is more meaningful when that trust and love is earned. I kinda fit this. I was only with one person voluntarily, and was date raped by the next man. Before I got married, I was a lonely fool and married my ex after only 3 weeks of dating. Of course I got pregnant right away. The next 20 years were full of abuse of every imaginable type. I won't go into it here. Check my post history if you're that curious. After my husband tried to kill me, he went to prison and I divorced him immediately. The last 6 years I've been with a wonderful, adventurous partner and I've done everything I've ever wanted to try with Monsieur. I've had more sex with him in 6 years than I did with my ex in 20 years. Plus, not being raped is nice. My brother and his wife didn't have sex before getting married. Religious upbringing at both ends. Their marriage has been a bit of a disaster. While they are still married and have a kid, they are separated. They didn't really work from day one. It wasn't the lack of sex beforehand that is the reason for it, but more so the fact they never lived together before marriage. The two really go hand in hand when you think about it. Overnight they went from basically dating to living together. Given the problems they had, it was clear they simply did not know one another. My brother always tells me that he wishes they lived together before. Not so much that he wishes they had sex before marriage. I think that the living together bit is what can undo a lot of no sex before marriage couples. I only partially fit here because my husband is the only person I've ever been with. We come from a yeehaw town that teaches abstinence as their sex ed. Lots of teen pregnancy here. For reference, I was shocked when my husband put it in. I didn't know it went in there. We didn't wait until we were married to have sex. But we did stay together all through high school and college, and I have never been with anyone else. He had sex with a previous girlfriend. We now have 2 children together and are going to approach the whole sex talk very differently than our parents did, whether they're ready or not. Teens have sex. I would rather my children be educated and safe when they're ready to take that step. As far as sex goes, I just can't really picture sex with anyone else, get turned on by the thought of sex with anyone else. I only know what sex with him is like and he knows my body and what I like, so I have no complaints. He's my best friend and I don't ever see us getting a divorce. But if we did, I imagine I would have a pretty hard time wanting to have sex with anyone else. Not for religious reasons. My first mate and I, though, didn't wait till marriage. We did not have sex with anyone else till each other. We are on the road to divorce. Paperwork tomorrow. She's had sex since the breakup, and I have not. It's been almost a year. For me, the physical and emotional are tied closely to each other. I haven't yet found someone I have the emotional connection with in order to have the equal physical connection. I'm not saving myself for marriage, however. I've been called prude, old-fashioned, naive, etc. for being unable to act physically without the emotions to drive it. I've even hurt people by refusing sex. Communication about how you and others work, what your boundaries are and why, as well as expectations, are key in any relationship. My suggestion: take the time during the divorce to learn who you are, what you want, what you don't want, and don't listen to other people's expectations or guidance on the sex you should or should not be having. Do what is right for you. Do it purposefully. Do it consciously. Do it wholeheartedly. And of course, do it with consent. As someone who falls into this category, I felt like I'd been sold such a lie. I was told from the time I was a little girl, which is super creepy by the way, that anything sexual before marriage was wrong, so I didn't have it until getting married to my first boyfriend at 19. 'Cause yeah, no, the whole you can't have sex unless you're married or else it not only means you're bad, dirty, ungodly, won't be blessed, maybe you won't go to heaven, and definitely no one else will ever want you situation that I was told I was in. Anyway, after leaving my abusive sex several years in, I realized waiting was such a terrible idea. I had no idea about consent, a healthy life, communication, etc. All that to say, my views changed to that of thinking people should have sex with people they care about, love, just want to have sex with if everyone is an adult and wanting the same thing. I would never encourage my kids to wait until marriage. Quite the opposite. Learn about your sexuality, safe sex, consent, comparability, etc. Don't rely on Sky Daddy to somehow weirdly just bless your virginal abusive sex life. TLDR, 0 would not do waiting until marriage again. Edit 1, for clarity, grammar. Edit 2, whoa, I've never had a comment get this amount of upvotes, comments or any awards of before. Thank you guys. So many replies. I knew this was a pretty common experience in the Christian culture I grew up in, but wasn't expecting my experiences to resonate so much. Thank you for all of the very kind comments. I really appreciate them. I've been divorced from my ex for about 6 years. I'm 29 now, but it probably took me until about a year ago to really work through everything and get to the place where I can have really healthy relationships. But thanks so a lot of personal growth and good counseling, I've gotten to a really healthy place and have an incredible boyfriend and an overall amazing life. I'm so sorry for anyone who went through something similar and hope you are all healing and moving forward as well. Edit 3, for the few comments stating that some people choose to wait until marriage without the pressure and are very happy. I'm certainly not against people choosing of their own volition to wait until marriage. Again, personally I don't think it's a great idea. Just like I think waiting until marriage to see how someone interacts with their family or spends their money isn't a great idea. But people should make their choices they want. So yeah, if you're not being coerced, guilted into waiting, wait away. But I've just never experienced anyone waiting without all of the shame forced upon in order to manipulate them into that choice. I was a virgin until 23 when I married my husband. I'm 30 now. We're now in the process of divorce and I have met someone else during the separation. I thought I would have a lot of guilt and shame hanging me up in the premarital sex area. But it actually turned out to be pretty liberating. Sex with my husband was traumatic and abusive at times and my new experiences have been much better. I will not be preaching abstinence to my children. My aunt got married at 17 in Mexico to a 20 years. Very common. They had 2 kids. Sex. Then he cheated on her and left to California. She's been stuck with the 2 kids in Wisconsin ever since. But the point is it's been 15 years and she claims she hasn't had sex since the kids and she almost kicked her oldest son for having sex at 16. Disclaimer that I'm not married, but the relationship is definitely heading that way and I went through a long period of declared celibacy. Also, I'm not seeing a lot of guys posting here, so I thought I'd throw my story in. Essentially the way it goes is that I come from a very fucked up family and found my self-esteem attacked so often as a child that I came to believe I was incapable of loving someone without hurting them the way the people who were supposed to love me would hurt me. Don't worry, I've worked on a lot of all that and I'm not in that place anymore. This caused me to take a vow of celibacy within my group of weird-ass friends. Ritual scarification and all. It seemed like a phase, and of course pretty much every adult assumed that, but I was celibate from middle school to my 4th year of college. Despite being attracted to women, interested in women, and desiring to have a relationship in several situations with various people, I got out of that situation when I went to college, got away from my friends and family, and started to reorient myself a bit. It took a couple years and a lot of soul searching, but it put me in a place where I was ready to let go of that sentiment. Then, when I met my current partner, my own affections pulled me out of celibacy. Honestly, a lack of any previous sexual or romantic experience has been a major challenge for me in many fields. I think women are often erroneously portrayed as maintaining some kind of weird purity if they're virgins. But the stereotypes for virgin men are far less flattering. Anytime a male colleague would find out I was a virgin, a notable decrease in their respect for me would occur. And it still happens to a lesser extent if I open up about my romantic history in public. Women tend to be more understanding, but can also somehow decide that it's sweet. It wasn't. It was a well-hidden symptom of trauma. Nobody should be pressured to have sex if they don't want to, and nobody should be judged or evaluated based on their sexual history. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.